Number 15. The very hungry caterpillar. If caterpillars have always creeped you out for no reason, then you're about to learn of a good one. The purse caterpillar is only about 1 inch long on average, and might not look like much of a threat at first, but rub one thing the wrong way, and you're in for a surprise. That's because, hidden underneath its cute and fuzzy exterior, right around where the mouth is located, are rows and rows of razor-sharp quills that are poisonous. Even humans are not safe from its painful sting, which causes a grid-like pattern of swollen red dots to appear across the skin. Once stung, you can also expect to experience intense headaches, queasiness, vomiting, and your neck might swell up as you go into shock. These symptoms can last for an hour, or they can drag on for days as the poison works its way out of your system. Since most doctors have never heard of the purse caterpillar before, they are often of no help when someone comes into the emergency room because of one. Even though its population levels have been steadily rising for years now, rarely does anyone ever seem to suspect a venomous caterpillar is to blame. This leaves victims burdened with the additional stress of not knowing how to properly treat their condition, or if it will even end. Later in life, the pus caterpillar makes a freakish-looking cocoon, and eventually becomes a much less harmful moth. Until then, however, anyone is fair game. Worse still, many times a small child will innocently handle a pus caterpillar, only to experience its terrible sting along with all of the side effects later on. In fact, these bugs are such a problem that outbreaks have been known to shut down public schools all throughout Texas. Oh, did I not mention before that these caterpillars are in many regions across the United States? Number 14. All claws, no bite. What do you get when you cross a wasp with a praying mantis? A mantid fly. This little winged freak looks pretty menacing at first, but it's actually completely harmless unless you are a fly, in which case, look out. The mantis fly will use its long front legs to grasp its prey and immediately rip their wings off. Then, it spins around and around while eating them whole, like a living piece of corn on the cob. These strange creatures are common in the United States, and also in tropical regions throughout the world. Scientists believe that the mantis fly has evolved itself to appear like a wasp, so that flies and other nearby insects would not see it as a threat until it's too late. Unlike real wasps, mantis flies are nocturnal. If you are already afraid of bugs, then this is probably the last thing you would ever want landing on your shoulder. Its fearsome appearance is definitely what earns it a spot on this top 15s list. Number 13. Red Rocket. Everything in the desert wants to eat horned lizards, so they have developed a wide variety of defenses in response. They are not the fastest reptiles in the animal kingdom by far, so running away is usually not an option. Instead, they try to blend into their environment using camouflage. If that doesn't work, then the 5-inch reptile will puff up and hiss in display of dominance. Puffing up also makes them harder to be swallowed. There's one special defense, however, that horned lizards save for only when they are attacked by coyotes, foxes, and other similar predators. They squirt their own blood. Horned lizards can shoot blood from their eyes up to 6 feet away. Located underneath both of the lizard's eyes are tiny pouches. When a lizard sees a desert wolf, for example, the pouches quickly fill with blood that the horned lizard can aim just by looking at its target. You might be wondering, why would they bother to squirt their own blood on a predator? After all, wouldn't that just make them hungrier? Ordinarily, yes, but scientific studies show that there is something in horned lizards' blood that certain desert animals hate. Scientists aren't exactly sure what chemicals are in its blood to make this happen, but they are sure that horned lizard's blood can cause an allergic reaction in certain predators that leaves them shaking their head for up to 15 minutes. Plenty of time to get away. Even when scientists covered delicious mice with horned lizard blood, the desert foxes they used still couldn't stand and displayed the same disgusted reaction. At any rate, this is definitely the only creature on Earth that can shoot blood straight out of its eyes at will. Number 12. Monkey see, monkey die. Everyone knows that cats are pretty smart, and they also tend to have a cruel streak when it comes to hunting prey. The margay is no exception. This small cat lives in both Central and South America, and it developed a very clever and sadistic way to hunt that makes it very unique and scary. One day, Brazil researchers were studying the margay when they observed something quite disturbing. One margay was perfectly imitating the sounds of a baby monkey in distress. When the concerned adults came rushing to see what was wrong, all they would find was a wildcat staring back at them, ready to pounce. As if being eaten alive by a jungle cat wasn't terrifying enough, the poor monkeys spent their final moments leading up to that, feeling the type of terror that only a parent could feel for its young. When the researchers told the natives of what they saw, hardly any of them were surprised. Apparently the margay knows how to do the same things with birds and other wildlife too. Number 11. The Frankenfish. For years now, a biotechnology company called Aqua Bounty has been making headlines by splicing the DNA of 3 fish together. This was done in an effort to make the largest salmon possible to sell to grocery stores and restaurants. Since then, the media has dubbed them as Frankenfish, but they're basically just oversized salmon, so we're not going to play them up as some kind of terrifying looking creature. What makes them scary, however, is what they are single-handedly doing to the world's oceans. Frankenfish are kept in overcrowded tanks, where they often escape into the wide open ocean. Here, they become one of the biggest unnatural threats to the food chain. These super salmon have been designed to literally never stop growing, so it isn't hard to imagine how easily they can wipe out an ecosystem by overeating. There's also concerns about Frankenfish mating with wild salmon once they escape and becoming even more prevalent. To keep this from happening, Aqua Bounty claims they raise the Frankenfish as sterile females. However, even they have to admit that this method is not foolproof, and a certain percentage of them are still quite fertile. Salmon are also thought to be able to change gender, which further adds to the potential for a major Frankenfish overpopulation in the future. So, what will be the end result of the ocean? Nobody is sure. Some people expect the majority of the ocean life to die out over time, as escaped Frankenfish continue to breed with other salmon and take over the seas. The Food and Drug Administration is currently being sued for the potentially devastating consequences of allowing this to happen. Number 10. The living fossil. The frilled shark has been around for over 80 million years, and it continues to lurk in the Atlantic Ocean to this day. Since it normally lives thousands of feet below sea, however, it is rarely photographed. In 2007, one was found swimming in shallow waters at a Japanese marine park. While this was a rare chance for people to see the frilled shark up close, keep in mind that this particular one was close to death and in a very bad shape. Healthy ones weigh much more and are probably even more intimidating to witness. Frilled sharks mostly eat fish, but the way they eat is what makes them one of the scariest creatures of all time. That's because the frilled shark devours its prey more like a snake would as opposed to any member of the shark family. Their jaws don't really deliver a powerful bite, but rather hyperextend like a snake's. This means they are the only sharks who pretty much swallow prey whole. Number 9. 150 in one blow. Jellyfish are one of the planet's most ancient monsters, and they just seem to be growing more and more terrifying with the passage of time. Take the lion's mane jellyfish, for instance. Normally, one weighs about 40 pounds and is about the size of a garbage can, but in 1870, one of these behemoths washed ashore from the Massachusetts Bay, Its body was 7.5 feet wide and its tentacles were 120 feet long, the largest jellyfish ever recorded. Their tentacles are tightly arranged in 8 bunches throughout its body, with over 100 tentacles in each group. That's more than 800 total. These tentacles pack such a severe sting that even once they become separated from the jellyfish, they can still hurt someone. In 2010, a single lion-maned jellyfish died and broke up into smaller pieces. Pieces of its tentacles washed ashore in Rye, New Hampshire, and stung over 150 people on the beach. At least 9 of them required medical care. The sting of a lion's mane jellyfish can cause blistering burns and muscle cramps. It can even slow down the heart and respiratory system enough to cause someone to die. As if this weren't enough, lion's mane jellyfish usually travel in large groups that can spread over a half-mile long, feasting on small fish and attacking whatever gets in their way. Number 8. Nope. What has 8 legs, is half a foot long, and jaws that are literally a third of its overall body? Camel spiders. Most commonly found in Middle Eastern deserts, these spiders not only eat other bugs, but they also prey upon lizards, birds, and even small rodents. Their jaws use digestive enzymes that literally dissolve their prey's flesh into liquid as they chew. Their fearsome appearance and incredible speed has given camel spiders a legendary reputation as one of the scariest creatures to ever exist in modern times. During the Gulf War in the 1990s, rumors spread of a gigantic spider chasing down American soldiers and jumping up to 3 feet in the air. Sometimes, soldiers claimed, spiders even started eating people's limbs while they slept. Now, those are completely made-up war stories, but here's what is true. Camel spiders are able to run 10 miles per hour, and they will charge straight at you. They actually just want to stand under the shade that your shadow provides, but they still will bite you when they feel threatened. Some varieties will even make an angry hiss. A half-foot spider that runs towards humans instead of away from them and hisses? Yeah, that deserves a respectable position on the list. Number 7. Devoured by sloth bears. Despite their name, sloth bears have absolutely no relation to sloths. They just have similar-looking thick claws and insanely sharp teeth. While sloths mainly stay high up in the trees and keep to themselves, sloth bears are known to be aggressive and will randomly attack humans. The first sloth bear attack was recorded in the 1957 book Man-Eaters and Jungle Killers, written by a famous safari hunter named Kenneth Anderson. In this recollection of his hunts, Anderson recalls tracking a sloth bear that, quote, would go out of his way to attack people, even when he saw them at long distance away. The sloth bear Anderson speaks of killed at least 12 people and seriously maimed 24 others. It especially liked to claw and eat their faces. Eventually, after tracking the bear across many different regions of India while interviewing a trail of victims left in its wake, Kenneth finally meets the sloth bear face to face. He shines a flashlight in its eyes and shoots it in the chest at close range, and the killer sloth bear is no more. While his account is a thrilling must-read, it unfortunately is far from the only retelling of a vicious attack by sloth bears. In 2014, a 45-year-old farmer in India saw a sloth bear and foolishly decided to attack it first with his machete out of fear. The sloth bear defended itself, which is understandable, but what it did next shows why its species makes the list. A crowd of worried villagers had gathered around at this point. Instead of wandering back into the woods for safety, the sloth bear charged headfirst into the group so that it could rip into a second victim's face, arms and upper body. It then went back to the first farmer's body, where it stayed for the next 4 hours. By the time police arrived, the sloth bear had eaten the farmer's entire right leg. Number 6. Brainworms. You might get upset at your cat for bringing a dead animal inside of the house from time to time, but that's not the only gift that your favorite feline may have recently given you. There's another present that might be waiting just for you, one that comes straight from the litter box and goes directly into your brain. I'm talking about the fecal-dwelling parasites known as Toxoplasma gondii. Once these one-celled creatures get inside of your brain, they usually cause flu-like symptoms at first, but that's not all. They can also seriously damage your eyesight along with virtually any other organ. Fortunately, most people have an immune system that is strong enough to beat these worms within a day or even within an hour, but at the same time, there have been plenty of people who have gone from feeling perfectly fine one day to having serious, lifelong complications in the next. As if the physical symptoms weren't enough, a Czech Republic study in 1992 confirmed that these parasites cause all sorts of personality changes too. Strangely enough, what kind of changes occur all depends on if you're male or female. For whatever reason, once a man gets infected, he often tends to disregard rules and become much more likely to get into verbal and physical altercations. Infected women, on the other hand, can become equally uninhibited, although in a much different way. It seems that women who come into contact with Toxoplasma gondii tend to become far more promiscuous than they ever would have been before. Make no mistake about it, cat-to-human parasites are real, they are dangerous, and they seem to be taking over the world. According to Oxford Journals for Clinical Infectious Diseases, 13% of the United States population carried this parasite as of 2010. Every single country in the world has tested positive for them to some degree. In certain African and Latin American countries, over 90% of the population is infected. Almost everybody. If you ever ate meat that is tainted or undercooked, drank water that was dirty, or if you don't properly wash your hands after handling cat litter, then you have already put yourself at risk. Number 5. Sea scorpions. Millions upon millions of years ago, huge creatures known as arthropods ruled the earth. This is the same category of angry animals that would later evolve into spiders, scorpions, crabs, centipedes, and lots of other creepy stuff. Around 390 million years ago, one arthropod seems to have ruled over them all. This gigantic monstrosity is known as the Jackalopterus. In 2007, paleontologists discovered the fossil of a giant claw that was nearly 20 inches long. By their calculations, the Jackalopterus was almost 12 feet long and dominated the ocean. They mainly fed on fish, each other, and well, pretty much everything else they could get their claws on. Number 4. Sea dinos. Most people think that the T-Rex was the king of the dinosaurs, but about 100 million years ago, another dinosaur put everything else to shame. First discovered in Egypt in 1912, the Spinosaurus was the largest dinosaur ever. Paleontologists estimate that it could have been around 60 feet tall and have weighed up to 20,000 pounds. In comparison, the T-Rex weighed about 1 ton less and was only half as tall. Just the massive spines alone jutting out from the Spinosaurus's back grew to be 7 feet tall. They may have been used as defensive structures, but since this dinosaur was not likely to have any predators, they were most likely a way for the Spinosaurus to display its age and maturity to others. Scientists believe that the longer its spines were, the more likely it was to find a mate. Its teeth were the size of long needles, and there were about 7 along each side of its jaws. Behind them, another 12 teeth waited. Researchers think that they mostly ate fish and dead carcasses, but we're guessing if you were to have ever seen a Spinosaurus in person, you probably would not have stuck around to find out for sure. As such, the largest dinosaur ever definitely deserves a spot on this list. Number 3. I see you. There are a lot of strange parasites living in Africa, but the Loa Loa worm has to be one of the worst. You get the Loa Loa worm from the simple bite of a black fly, where they go on to multiply inside of your connective tissue. Female worms can make thousands of microscopic larvae inside of you every day. These larvae slowly push their way into your lungs and emerge into the bloodstream, where they can be sucked up by a fly and start the process all over again. This feels about as good as it sounds. They can survive inside of the body for up to 17 years. As they travel all around beneath your skin, it causes raised itchy bumps called calabar swellings. Oh, one other thing. The lower worm doesn't have the greatest sense of direction, so sometimes it gets lost in the strangest of places. As such, it's not uncommon to find these worms squirming under the surface of your eye. Number 2. You've probably been wondering where all the snakes have been on this list. Well, truth is, you can go ahead and forget about every other snake you've ever known. The titanoboa is the granddaddy of them all. Part titan, part boa. Titanoboa. The first titanoboa fossil was discovered in a Colombian coal mine in 2009. The giant snake was believed to have lived around 60 million years ago, when the area was little more than a swampy jungle where only the largest creatures survived. Weighing more than 2,500 pounds and measuring over 40 feet long, the titanoboa is the largest snake to have ever existed. It could eat anything it wanted to. Even aquatic life was no problem because, guess what? Titanoboas were excellent swimmers. Words really can't describe how massive this reptile was, especially compared to today's wimpy version of snakes. If the titanoboa were alive today, it would come up to the waist of a full-grown man. That's not too bad for a creature with no legs. Number 1. Down the Forgotten Trail. So, here's a good reason not to swim in the Amazon River, as if you really needed one. The kangaroo fish is only about 1 inch long, but it is feared by the natives more than almost anything else in the entire jungle. Also known as the vampire fish, the kangaroo feeds off of the blood of its victims. To do so, it has a long, thin body with sharp teeth that it uses to rip its way into the gills of a larger fish. Extremely sharp backwards-facing fins help lodge the kangaroo fish firmly into place, where it can then eat its way deeper and deeper into the body until it reaches the heart. Now that sounds pretty bad, but it doesn't end there. According to Amazon legend, sometimes the kangaroo makes a mistake and swims up a person's urethra instead. In 1930, a fish specialist named Eugene Willis Guyer published a paper in the American Journal of Surgery all about this strange phenomenon. Apparently, many local Amazon villagers spoke of a dangerous fish that was known to zip straight up the private parts of both men and women alike. It was the reason why many men made a tradition of tying a rope around their genitals before going in the water. If one of these fish got inside of them, the report said the only method of removal was amputation. Of course, there was no way to actually verify these stories back then, and so they were largely written off as myth over time. Scientists tried to recreate the scenario with various experiments, but they found kangaroo were in no way attracted to the scent of urine or any other similar claims. Try as they might, they just couldn't replicate the story. But then, in 1997, one poor man said he experienced a kangaroo fish himself. The local doctor who removed it from him backs up his story by providing some interesting supporting evidence. This man lived deep in the Amazon at the time. He was minding his own business and urinated in the water one day like usual. In those few seconds, he felt a sharp sting in his groin, followed by an explosive pain. A kangaroo fish had rushed into his urethra and was burrowing itself deeper inside by the minute. It took the poor man 4 days to travel from his remote location to the nearest city doctor. By then, he was in complete and total agony. As the doctor puts it, his bladder and genitals were extremely swollen, he was bleeding, and he had a bad fever. For days, the kangaroo fish had been trying to drill a hole straight through his private parts so that it could make an escape out of his rectum. The doctor used a special endoscope to go up the man's urethra and extract the fish. This surgical instrument has a camera mounted on it, and the 4-minute video it produced is legendary. If this video is to be believed, then this is the first piece of physical evidence suggesting that Amazon's most horrible legend is actually true. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, Sir Aim here. Recovering a bit from sickness, so I may have sounded a bit weird in this one. If you like horror stories, I have a bunch of those on my channel. So click the first link you find in the description and it'll take you to my latest story. I'd really love it if you'd subscribe as well. And if you like this video, then like this video. Life's good. Come on, enjoy yourselves a little. And I hope to see you in the next video.